Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to the second part of our BRSCC Winter Esports Series live here on Apex Racing TV. We've got the first two rounds out at the way course that we had at Alton Park in Silverstone, and that was before the Christmas break, but everyone is now soon to be fed and watered and over the festive period. Now it's time to get back to business in the Esports Series to keep us occupied over the off-season before the BRSCC season gets underway for 2023 in March on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. But we leave Silverstone onto another Grand Prix layout, and this is Donington Park in Derby in Leicestershire. 2.5 miles, 4 kilometres essentially awaiting the drivers tonight for three very exciting sprint races, all in Mazda MX-5 Global Cup cars. It's certainly been quite an enthralling season so far. 4 wins to Will Redford compared to 2 for Mikey Doble. And as the championship now goes forward to the next few rounds, it goes to a circuit where I've never really seen this produce any bad racing at all. So I'm certain tonight, if the first 2 meters are anything to go by, as drivers carry on getting familiar with the sim here in iRacing, with the car, with the setups, and with the circuits, it will certainly get closer and closer as the season goes on. Scott Woodward's here back in commentary. Andy Thompson back alongside me as well. Well, we're back at it once again, Andy. 2 meetings in the books now, 4 left to go. We're back at it here at Donington Park for the third round, and I wonder how many lessons all the drivers will have learned over the winter, if they have been practicing, that they might want to try to put into practice here tonight as they progress on to the second part of the season.
Yeah, good evening, Scott. Good evening, viewers. Yeah, back into the MX-5 after what seems like an eternity break since we were back in many moons ago in 2022 in Silverstone. You were back here at Donington Park. It's going to be a great track. We've picked the tricky layout, the GP track for the these 3 rounds of 15 minutes, so it's going to be an interesting round. And like we've been saying at the start, Scott, you know, the drivers seem to be getting the grips a little bit more. The people that haven't really raced on iRacing probably putting a little bit more practice, realizing the technicalities of what it is like to drive on iRacing, very similar to real life as it is on the sim. So a lot of the drivers starting to get to grips with the car, getting to grips with how it handles, and this is going to be another test here tonight for him, Scott. You know, you've got a very tricky Donington Park. The elevation changes on this track are quite severe, and with these cars liking to like skid out wide round corners, it's going to be sort of interesting coming down the Craner curves through the old hairpin. I'm expecting some of the cars maybe to scoot off into the kitty litter on the outside coming through the old hairpin, but it's going to be a great event. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, likewise. It should be quite intriguing to see how many lessons they will have learnt over that. And given that it is quite a fast-flowing circuit here at Donington Park, it is one of those circuits where it can bite back if you take too many liberties with it, but you have to be very, very careful indeed. We're now looking, of course, at the qualifying session at the moment. And as you can see at the moment, it is actually Mikey Doble who leads the qualifying session. We'll give you quickly just a rundown of where they are in terms of points coming into this race.
Yeah, so looking at, obviously at the points, Will Redford's currently leading the championship after, like you said, Scott, he had his 4 wins early on in the season. The first 3 rounds, he pretty much dominated. One out in Silverstone. I think Silverstone was a very much a close affair. He was up there for the first race, certainly, and then basically almost got like taken out on the last couple of corners there. But Mikey Doble seems to be on a late charge now, so I think Mikey Doble is going to be the one that gives Will Redford a run for his money, certainly in these next 3 rounds, as we can see in the qualifying as the finishing flag comes up, and Michael Doble does indeed take pole position for the first race.
He does indeed. Will got caught up in 1 or 2 incidents, as you mentioned, in those last couple of races, which hindered him from getting a hat-trick. Here's the grid then for race number 1 of tonight. Mikey Doble starts on pole position alongside Tom Griffiths on the front row of the grid. Will Redford, points leader on drop scores, he's 3rd alongside last year's Mazda MX-5 Super Cup champion Will Blackwell Chambers. Then John Higgins Jr. and Matt Kendall then come next on the 3rd row from Joseph Doble and Lee Britton. And Richard Jepp and Richard Woodson round out the top 10 from Steve Roberts and Chris Etheridge on the 6th row of the grid. Onto row 7 with John Higgins Jr. and Richard Harwood on the 7th row from Keith Dalton and Simon Hutchings. Then it's Luke Herbert, former 3-time MX-5 Super Cup champion, Jason Graytrex alongside him in 18, James Barrett and Gary Preble, who we've usually seen a lot in the C1 Racing Club series. It's from Matt Goddard and Harry England from Fiesta Juniors. James Riley and Hugh Rosenthal round out the top 24 drivers on the grid. And only 27 here tonight. Joel Argales, Callum Graytrex and Robert Bannister. I suspect some drivers have been at Autosport today, which is probably one of the reasons why they haven't been able to make it, or they're still on some kind of breaks. But still 27 cars on the grid. Should be quite an enthralling spectacle. I'm sure with slightly few more cars, it might not be as chaotic as some of the races before. So, cars all set then. It's Mikey Doble on the left-hand side, Tom Griffiths on the right, but watch Will Redford on the left. Second car back in the white, black and green machine, and Will Blackwell Chambers in white, red and black. It's back to action for the 2023 segment of the BRSCC Winter Esports Series. Let's see if Mikey Doble can pick up win number 3 here at Donington Park of the season. Let's see if Tom Griffiths can do better, if Will Redford can make it 5, or even the likes of Will Blackwell Chambers and co behind them can possibly try and make their way up the order as the season as the evening goes on, as the lights come up. So, all set to get underway for race number 1. Is it going to be Doble with the whole shot? Is Griffiths going to be able to get a better start off the line? Or is Redford or Blackwell Chambers going to have anything to say about it? It's an equal start, looks like, so far from Doble. Immediately, Griffiths has to go across and cover Redford. Blackwell Chambers will have the outside run from the 2nd row down towards Redgate Corner for the first time. But it's going to be Mikey Doble who leads. He gets the whole shot in towards turn 1. It's side by side for 2nd place between Tom Griffiths and Will Redford. He's out wide. He's lost it sideways. He's very sideways. He's off. He's around. The championship leader off already into the barriers from turn 1. That's a disastrous start to his evening here at Donington Park. Will Redford in trouble already here in race number 1 of round 3. Incredibly, that's an incredible rare error, I think, for Will Redford. At Silverstone, he was sort of involved in incidents which weren't really of his making. Off the road goes Richard Jepp in his yellow car. There's still incidents behind, and it seems as though I think there are 1 or 2 drivers. I think, Andy, there's more spins and contact going on. Some drivers, I think, haven't quite shaken off the race rust from the Christmas period.
Certainly not. I mean, it was very tricky for some of the drivers to see them there going 3 wide, coming down into the old hairpin. Very tricky place to make that passing opportunity. And like I said at the start, these cars like to slide out wide, so a lot of contact being made there, and a few cars getting in the wars there. But back at the front here, Tom Griffiths is making the challenge over Mikey Doble, coming into the S's for the first time. We got Doble on the inside, just going to be able to keep that position over Tom Griffiths. But this is probably a new one for Tom Griffiths, getting up there as well with the front end of the grid. It's great to see new drivers up the front end, but Mikey Doble here going super defensive coming into the Melbourne hairpin as they come up to the very tricky turn number 12 Goddard's. It's like an off-cambered corner, so certainly if cars are 2 by 2 wide, as we can see here, 4th and 5th there, 2 wide, there may be some incidents coming around this corner.
tell you what, that was pretty wheel-to-wheel stuff between Doble and Griffiths as they came across the back straight towards the chicane onto the GP loop. But it is Mikey Doble who leads then from pole position at the end of lap number 1. So he leads it from Tom Griffiths in second place. Those two know each other from Compact Cup back in the day. And it's third place for Higgins, fourth for Blackwall Chambers after he started in P4. Joseph Doble is fifth, and it's Lee Britton in P6. Now that's a breakaway six-pack that's trying to pull away, but you've also got Roberts and Kendall that are trying to get themselves involved too, so keep an eye for them if they're going to try and close up. The rest of the top 10 at the moment is currently taken by Richard Wood, who's up to 8th. He's off the road, he's gone Steve Roberts, so he's no stranger to MX-5s, and oh, that was very close indeed. I'd like to say he should have watched his rejoin, but then again, if he was coming off the road with the car on the grass and lots of dirt and dust on his tyres, it might have been totally his fault. But as he heads back onto the circuit, he's now down into 13th position with lots of work to do. But as they come up towards the halfway stage of lap number 2, looks though I think the Doble's trying to pull away by about a couple of tenths per second, but there is a definitive breakaway pack of 6 at the front as they head on towards the back straight for the second time.
Yeah, they definitely are. As we look at a replay at the start for Will Redford, see what happened to him as he comes down here into Redgate, trying to get that outside line around Redgate. And, did he just lose it on his own? I think he did. He got sort of spooked a little bit, went out onto the grass, and obviously with them cold tyres, didn't really grip on the grass, and unfortunately made a turn and hit the barrier there. So an uncharacteristic mistake there from Will Redwood. He's a very experienced iRacing driver, should know about these tyres in the first lap being extremely cold. A lot of the drivers taking a lot of risks, Scott, on that first lap with the tyre models that we have now in iRacing, and it takes a couple of laps for these MX-5s to actually warm up.
Yeah, that was I thought that was quite uncharacteristic for Will. So around then goes Joseph Doble. So he's now lost it as well. So a couple of these cars still not getting proper tempering into their tyres by the looks of it. Joseph Doble goes around and somebody else has looped it. It's both the teammates, in fact, Lee Britton and his in real life team boss, Luke Herbert. So that's 3 cars that have lost it on the exit of Goddard. So either there's, I'd like to say something down, but this is real world racing, not sim. I don't simulate fluid going down on the circuit, but either the circuit conditions are not quite conducive to what they were doing in testing, or simply they're just having cold tyres and haven't got the heat into them. Meanwhile, the black and green car that's charging through, that is Will Redford. He, of course, he's had the spin that we saw the replay of at exiting Redgate on lap number 1. Now, he's back up to 13th position after he spun all the way down to the back of the field. So he's on the charge now. He's got plenty of time to try and get towards the front. His gap between the lead and where he is right now is at the moment 14 seconds. His last lap, to give him some idea of where he is in terms of pace, was a 1:46.25, which is pretty quick. When you put that into context, the current fastest lap of the race is held by Matt Kendall on a 44.89. So he's got decent pace at the moment, but he has to try and find a little bit more picking his way through. He needs a couple of clear laps in clear air, not picking his way past cars around him. And then potentially, if he gets past Goddard here for 12th position, he might get a lap or two in some clear air to start to put in some quick lap times and close that gap down pretty rapidly.
Yeah, he's considering he's had a complete spin on that first corner. He's made up some decent ground. So coming down to the S's again, goes for the inside line here, does Will Redford. Oh, a bit of contact there between himself and Goddard, and you know, he's got to be wary of the damage he's caused here, and that just lets Etheridge or Britton through easily on Will Redford. So although Will gained the place there originally, he's lost out to Lee Britton coming in out of the S's. So you know, Will Redford put in a lot on the line here in his championship bid, but I suppose he does need to get back up to make sure that Mikey Doble, who is probably his main championship rival, currently in first place at the moment, wants to mitigate the points loss he's going to attain in this race.
Yeah, he's possibly getting a little bit too over-exuberant when it comes to try and get past people. He was very lucky not to lose it again on the exit of the S's. He came after a little bit of a contact there with Goddard, but he managed to get away with it, and in the process let Lee Britton through, which he's now gone ahead and made the pass on in order to make that stick to get through into 12th place. He's now 16.3 seconds off the lead. We're now on to the 4th and 5th lap of the race. On board with Mikey Doble, looking backwards now at John Higgins. He's up to 2nd place. It's Griffiths down to 3rd, and then Blackburn, Chambers and Kendall. Top 5 covered by 1.7 seconds. And right on board with Higgins now, looking at the back of Mikey Doble's number 88 machine. Of course, Mikey Doble in the real world is not only this year's Nankang Tyre BMW Compact Cup champion, but he's also in the same weekend he clinched the GT5 Challenge title. He's also quite an experienced sim racer. He does do quite a bit in his spare time as well. So he knows these cars relatively inside out as well. They're very similar to the Ginettas, he told us in our last interview. There's Gary Preble. I can assure you, I think the student driver livery is completely just either for satire, just because he wants to pick one, but he's a very experienced driver, not just in C1s, but also in plenty of saloon races and even in that sort of 90s saloons. One of the notable things he's done is that he was raced up against Super Touring, and of all things, a really sort of pumped up EG Honda Civic, and he was very quick in it too. So Gary's certainly someone who has got quite a bit of pace underneath him. At the moment, he's currently circulating in 10th position, so in the top 10. So it's a good run so far from Gary. As we're coming out onto another lap, it should be Mikey Noble still leading by 0.4 the second, top 5 covered by 1.7, but it should be Wootton, Higgins, Dalton, Roberts and Preble in that top 10 battle, with the recovering Joseph Doble on Preble's tail as they come onto the start of another lap as we approach half distance.
Yeah, it definitely is. Them top 5 really sprinted away from the rest of the pack at the moment. So it's between them top 5 who's going to win this first race. Coming 7 minutes into the first race of 15 minutes. So, you know, halfway through the race at the moment, we can certainly see a distinction in the timing tower between the top 5. Then around about a 5-second gap down to David there in 6th place. Followed closely by Higgins, Robinson, but we're just watching Keith Dalton there trying to make a move on Roberts. It's coming through the old hairpin here, and we might see the car 56 going out wide, manages to keep it on the track, but a little bit of tyre rubbing there with the 71 car. But we see a little bit of an incident there, went a little bit too wide on the corner, and unfortunately unnecessary contact really with the 711.
Yep, so that's Dalton. Roberts off the road. Then Dalton immediately parks it in the pit lane. Roberts might try and get going again. Let's take a look at the replay of that. So they come out of the old hairpin, and then as Roberts tries to move across and take his line. Now, this can be pretty interesting, because I think Roberts might have been a bit distracted with what was going with Preble. He's trying to keep out of his way or hold the inside line, and might not have been aware. Of course, you have to remind you that some of these cars do get spotters in the rear to tell them the car's alongside. But I guess in a small bit of defence for Steve, he wasn't quite fully. Keith wasn't all that fully alongside, but he might have had at least a warning from his spotter that he was there somewhere to his right. But either way, that's a matter for the clerk of the course to take a look at rather than myself. Anyway, up and towards the complex now to the end of the lap. Top 5 are now all together in a line. Gap has now come down a little bit to 1.5, 1.6 seconds between them as we start another lap, as we get towards 9 minutes in this first 50-minute race. And change on for second potentially. Here comes Griffiths to the inside line to regain second place in towards Redgate, up the inside of the Hills Motorsport car, and that is a nice pass slotted through. Bumps the curb on the exit, just a little hop in the wheels, and now he's getting to see an intimate view of what the rear suspension of Tom Griffiths' car looks like as he sort of pitches through the front as the camera looks forwards. Couldn't be any closer as they come down the hill. Blackwell Chambers there in 4th position in the red car, number 1 just behind. And then further back, we're just watching some of the cars that are around Will Redford's recovery drive. He's now up to 10th position on the tail. His next target now is to try and chase after Gary Preble, but he's just got past the number 11th place car of Etheridge. In fact, this is Etheridge in Britain here, so that's one of the laps cars. I think that's possibly Callum Greytrex, who's gone down a lap after he had some early incidents. So this is the scrap for 11th going on between Britain and Goddard, so they come out through Starkeys and Schwantz and up towards the top of the circuit at McLean's.
Yeah, very unorthodox way of taking the old hairpin there from Lee Britton, literally cut the inside of the track. I wonder what he was actually doing there. But looking further back, we're currently looking at Robert Bannister in P15th, followed closely by Hugo Rosenthal, and yeah, a little bit of a battle there, but you can sort of see in the timing tower the distinct groups that we've got already formed. Only 10 minutes into this 15-minute race, and already the gaps have really formed between the different pods of drivers that we've got. So you look at the top 5 covered by 2 seconds at the moment, then it comes down to P7 from there. Well, in sort of like no man's land, the 2 of them, and then you got Joseph Doble in P8, and that's in the battle again with the 3 cars with Doble, Preble and Redford. And Redford's making some good ground, considering he spun at that first corner, up to P10th at the moment, but he's certainly running out of time to make any more ground on the drivers in front. But pretty much doing damage limitation here is as Mikey Doble has pretty much led from start to finish. Had a little bit of a worry at the opening lap with Tom Griffiths, but Tom Griffiths has sort of been entertained by John Higgins back in 3rd place, so there's a little bit of a gap now appearing, 0.6 of a second between Doble and Griffiths, and Doble seems to have this race won in the bag at the moment, but hopefully I just haven't commentator cursed him, but we do know he's a good driver, so hopefully we'll keep it going, but doing very well at the moment. But certainly them top 5, Scott, have pulled away from the rest of the field.
Yeah, we've still got 3.5 minutes to go or so it's not quite over yet until the checkered flag. It was 15 minutes, I think, plus 1 lap on top of it. So on that one, we'll have to wait and see if Mikey Doble can hold on. He's got good signs at the moment. The gap has come down ever so slightly by about a tenth or so on this lap, but with 0.7 across the line, it's now just dipped under, fractionally under 6 tenths as they swing through the S's for the another time. And onto the pit straight, onto the back straight towards the hairpin. It's still Doble who leads the way. Then Griffiths in second place from Higgins, Blackwell, Chambers and Kendall. Kendall's just dropped a little bit off the back of that queue, as has Blackwell Chambers. They're together battling over 4th place as we continue to look at Mikey Doble. And there's Griffiths in there. A little further back, this is Etheridge and Britton as they scrap over 11th position, down towards the hairpin. And then we've got Doble followed by Preble, and then just behind him Will Redford, who's now has managed to catch, not just catch, but as you can see, has also passed the Gary Preble up now into 9th position. So this very much is damage control here for Will Redford, quite literally in terms of point scoring. I think almost certainly he might well use this as one of his drop scores once we get the points calculations after this this evening's racing's finished. You watch here Lee Britton very sideways. There's a big twitch all the way around the Goddard's hairpin, and now he's got Etheridge right on it for the base back tail. Etheridge, who is experienced racing in the C1 Racing Club with the hashtag Bless team. Lee Britton, of course, a regular in the MX-5 Super Cup, so he knows the Mazda MX-5s intimately well, and Etheridge is going to try and battle back here around the outside. Might look for the undercut exiting Red Gates. They come onto the power once again, and now as they come down towards Hollywood, and then the trainer curves, they'll swing downwards, right and then left towards the bottom of the circuit of the old hairpin. That battle continues to rage on. I do want to look at the leaders though, because look at the time gap. It's the come down from what was 6 tenths per second, right the way down to about 2 tenths. It really has come down severely. Here it is. Here's the leaders then, up at the top of Coppice. And Mikey Doble then, for the first time since lap 1, coming under big pressure for the lead. The top 2 have dropped the guys from 3rd, 4th and 5th. They're going to fight over the final podium spot. But now as they come down the back straight, either Mikey Doble just lost pace or Tom Griffiths has found something, because now Mikey Doble looks like he might be in trouble here, under big pressure through the S's as they come back towards the hairpin. Doble's car not on the same pace he was. Griffiths' car in the closing stages here, coming absolutely alive here as he challenges for the lead.
Yes, it does. As they come side by side here for the Melbourne hairpin. You got Mikey Doble on the inside line, Tom Griffiths on the outside line. Don't think he's going to be able to get the move done here. No, Mikey Doble just cuts off the outside. So very much on a defensive drive. You can see Mikey Doble trying to go the inside here, coming up to Goddard's corner. Tom Griffiths just trying to go on the outside to try and get that extra speed coming down the start finish. And he might have actually done it here because Mikey Doble was quite tight to that inside line, so would have lost a bit of speed. Griffin will be able to just tuck up behind him on here. It's a white flag, so this is the last lap. So if Tom Griffiths is going to get his first win here in the BRSCC MX-5 Cup, he's going to have to do it on this last lap. But he's in a good prime position here as they come down the crane that curves for the last time. And Tom Griffiths is putting Mikey Doble under all sorts of pressure. And this is giving John Higgins an opportunity to close the gap up. He did say earlier on it was growing, but now it's closed down because these two are going super defensive on this lap. Mikey Doble in first, Tom Griffiths in second, and John Higgins in third.
So half a lap to go there, and this battle really has brought the 3rd, 4th and 5th cars into play. Griffiths looking right round the outside if he's brave enough to do so, but Doble will take his usual racing line. He'll force him onto the edge of the road. Higgins is there too, and they're still side by side. Exton McLean's up towards Coppice, up at the top of the corner. Blind Apex, and still Griffiths fancies the outside line, but he knows if he can put himself alongside and get enough momentum onto the back straight, he has a great chance to try and slip through, if not at the S's, but to set him up for a move into one of the 2 hairpins. Down the back straight, he's got the outside line. Higgins and Blackwell Chambers are looking for it, and now down towards the S's. Will Griffiths go right round the outside? He's going to try and do that, but he has to back out and puts it right into the final line of Higgins. He gets right onto his rear bumper. That's going to give Doble a bit of salvation here, and it's now Griffiths who has to do the defensive work, defending from Higgins. And look at Blackwell Chambers on the outside in the white and red car on the right hand side. He's going for a podium place as they go through the hairpin section for the final time. Out of Melbourne up towards Goddard's. It might be a reprieve for Mikey Doble, but the question's now going to be who on earth's going to get 2nd and 3rd. Down towards Goddard's for the final time. Doble looks like he might just well have this one unless he messes up the final corner. In towards the left-hander. Blackwell Chambers is there for 3rd place. Griffiths might hold on for 2nd at the moment, but for his 3rd win of the Winter Esports Series, up to the checkered flag. It's Mikey Doble who takes victory from Griffiths, Blackwell Chambers, Higgins and Kendall. Top 5 covered by 1.4 seconds at the flag. That was a magnificent last lap battle between the top 5. And as for Will Redford, he finishes behind both Kendall and David Wootton, and he comes home from after spinning on the first lap in 7th position. So he will start race 2 from 7th. Then it's going to be Joseph Doble. No, it's 8th, in fact, sorry, because it's, of course, Wood and Higgins 6th and 7th, Redford 8th, and then Joseph Doble and Gary Preble rounding out the top 10. But that was quite an intriguing first race. It was mostly Mikey Doble in control. Then towards the end of that first race, it looked as though that Doble's either tyres were going off or he made some kind of a mistake, because it brought Griffith back into play. And then there was that attack in the last couple of laps as if he could try and get through. Couldn't make it stick. Griffiths was momentarily, fractionally had his nose in front going towards the S's, but he knew the momentum that the Doble could take on the right racing line would help him to go through, and it only hindered Griffiths as it put him into the clutches of both Higgins and Blackwell Chambers, and eventually Blackwell Chambers capitalised on Higgins's non-capitalisation on the struggle that Griffiths had out of the chicane to pick up third place in the final couple of corners. So that was quite a tense finish, but another fantastic end to that race. We'll be getting straight into race number 2 very shortly, but yeah, incredible stuff at the front, and Doble takes another victory again, and that's prime compared to what he did before.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that was a great finish to that race. You know, Tom Griffiths put it all on the line coming through the S's, like you said, you know, trying to push Mikey Doble over to the left-hand side as much as he could, but then sort of lost momentum through the S's. And then Higgins came up behind, sort of tapped the back of Tom Griffiths, lost a little bit of speed, which gave Will Blackwood Chambers the opportunity to get up alongside him. Coming out of the Melbourne hairpin, and Blackwood Chambers had the inside line for Goddard's, which is the preferred line, which obviously gave him the opportunity, and he managed to keep it. So a great race there from what has probably been a turbulent series so far for Will Blackwood Chambers. A great race in race 1 here at Donington Park.
So a quick recap of the results of race number 1. These set the grid for race 2, so we're essentially going through the grid essentially here for race number 2. But it's Mikey Doble who starts on pole position after his win from Griffiths, Blackwood Chambers, Higgins, Kendall, Wootton, Higgins, Webford, Doble and Preble round out the top 10. Then Britton, Etheridge, Riley, Goddard, Herbert, Bannister, Greatrix and Huell Rosenthal in the top 18. I think that's all we've really got, because we've got a few more seconds until the race goes green for race number 2. So we're straight into it for round number 8 of the Winter Esports Series. So can Doble make it 2 from 2? Could Griffiths reprieve himself and get a victory this time? Could someone else in the back do it? And could even Will Redford do it from 8 on the grid? Let's find out as we get underway. Green flag flies and round 8 of the Winter Esports Series is underway down towards Redgate for the first time. It's a decent start from Doble, puts his car in the middle of the road. And he was third, possibly even second place, looks toward Blackwell Chambers. He's looking to try and make a move. Griffiths has the better grip on the outside line. And can Will Redford get through Redgate corner this time safely? Yes, he can, thankfully. He's now going to try and put the pressure on both Etheridge and also Preble round the outside of the... it's going to be Etheridge and... No, Higgins and Wootton by the looks of it. Down towards the old hairpin, already challenging for 6th position. Round the outside he goes. He's not taking any prisoners here at all. He's going straight round the outside. Oh, that's Gary Preble round the outside. Also off the road has gone Wootton. Several cars going around. One's got Luke Herbert. One of the Greater X's is involved. And once again, more cars hitting strife. That's the 19 cars that the problem. James Riley. Richard Jepp's been involved again for the second race. There's a few more cars hitting strife here once again. And the leads have got away quite cleanly. But once again, Andy, a few more drivers not quite having that much spatial awareness, it seems, after the festive period.
No, I think obviously Wootton coming round the old hairpin sort of lost it right in the middle of the track, and literally the rest of the field had nowhere to go. Saw cars going off left, right and centre, a couple of cars spinning, so that one little incident caused that cascading effect here. So let's have a look back at it coming down here through the crane and curves. No, this is the old hairpin there, and he just loses, gets tagged by the end right in the middle of the road, and then just causes this cascading effect down the rest of the field. And you know, being in these races, it's all about getting around that first lap nice and clean, and unfortunately quite a few, probably about half the field there, got caught up in that lap 1 incident coming through the old hairpin.
Yeah, it looked like it was after the spin, it looks like he tagged Riley, who then tagged Herbert, who then inadvertently got Richard Jepp got up involved in that, and then from there there several other cars that also got themselves into the mix. So end of lap number 1, it's Doble who leads once again, back in his customary leading position here at Donington Park, it seems. From Griffiths in 2nd place, Higgins 3rd, Blackwood Chambers 4th, nothing new there. Then it's Will Redford up from 8th on the grid to 5th on the opening lap. He's strong as at the exit of the Redgate corner. That's Mikey Doble wide over the grass, so I spoke too soon. Here comes Tom Griffiths through into the lead, and now Mikey Doble, as he tries to shake off the dirt and dust and grass on his tyres, is now going to come under big pressure from both John Higgins Jr. and Will Blackwood Chambers, and also look for Will Redford in the white, green and black car looming large with P5 ahead of Kendall in 6th, but it's Joseph Doble 7th, Higgins, Britton and the end of the top 10. This is Mikey Doble. A replay here of what happens. Heading down towards Redgate, just turns in. This just turned a little bit too sharp and hit the curb. He just hit the curb on the inside, but then possibly just puts the power on a little too early. Over on the grass he goes. He's very lucky not to lose the back end as he tries to get the power down. And look on the right-hand side through will go Tom Griffiths into the lead. And now it's Doble's turn to go on the attack. Whilst Doble now has to go from Griffiths has to go from Hunter to Hunted on lap number 2 of race 2 here tonight at Donington Park.
Yeah, it's lucky that wasn't the first lap for Doble, because he probably would have spun, because that was almost like a carbon copy of the Will Redford incident from the first race. So I had a little bit of heat to able to stay on the track, but still a great job doing it. And only lost the 1 position before that, and as you can see, he's pretty much right onto the back of Tom Grissom. And in fact, he's made a move and got the passing move, so got that inside line coming down to the Melbourne hairpin, pushed Tom Griffiths out wide and basically taken back his usual position at the front of the grid. Goes defensive here into Goddard's for the second time, just to try and hold off Tom Griffiths. That inside line into Goddard's is so powerful. The cars behind him wouldn't dare to go around the outside, because you would just get pushed out into the grass on the outside and lose a load of traction. So Mikey Doble takes up his usual position at number 1 at the top of the grid. Tom Griffiths there in second, but look who's come through the field, up 5 places from restart. Will Redford currently in P3. Obviously, thing to be aware of as well, the top 8 in this results in race 2 are reversed for race 3, and that 8th position at the moment is being held by John Higgins there in 8th place.
Yep, so that's going to be quite crucial to watch out for. Higgins as he makes his way in towards it. Blackpool Chambers over the grass on the exit, the old hairpin, but he manages to gather it up. And there's a slow car, Luke Herbert, leading everyone through. That's good, sensible driver for Luke to move out of the way. Not probably quite the evening of racing he was hoping for, but unfortunately he's been caught up in a couple of open lap incidents, which have kind of hindered his progress through the field here. Off the road has gone Harry England. That's one of our Fiesta Junior racers, who is off the road, sadly, in the 333 car. And that car, of course, is sporting one of the old school 90s Mazda liveries. Meanwhile, Mikey Doble under threat again, but now there's an added element here. Enter Will Redford, because he might have himself fancy a go here to go for the race lead. He's got 2nd place, and this time Griffiths tries to do what he couldn't do into the S's on the final lap, on lap 3 here in race number 2. Can't get that move done. Watch for the Redford car and Higgins in there too to try and make an attack. He might go diving down the outside. This is now Redford's shot. He is going to go down the outside if he can, as late as he dares. Is he alongside Griffiths? No, there is Griffiths' car just there, but he might get better traction with the racing line off the corner. And can he squeeze himself alongside? He's got the extra bit of grunt down the straight towards Goddard. He might get himself alongside. He has got himself alongside. He is getting alongside, and as he goes in towards the left-hander, he is through to 2nd place. Now, game on between the top 2 in the championship. It is Doble versus Redford. This is where Redford knows he should have been in race number 1 had he not made the mistake exiting Redgate on the opening lap. As they come across the line, he was about 0.3 of a second quicker that last lap than Mikey Doble. So Redford on the charge, and I'm pretty certain, if not this lap, but within the next couple of laps, if Doble doesn't make it hard for him, it might well be Will Redford into the lead within the next couple of laps. I'm almost certain with the pace he's putting in so far tonight.
Yeah, certainly is, and that was a great move there from Redford. Just trying to get this car and force his car almost through the eye of a needle there, coming up into Goddard to get that inside line to be able to push Tom Griffiths out wide and get that 2nd place. So be interesting now to see if Will Redford can make the passing move where Tom Griffiths couldn't be able to do it on Mikey Doble. So it's going to be interesting to see now when they come down to the S's, because Doble's got a new driver behind him that himself and Griffiths for the last three laps have been pushing each other coming down to the S's. So let's see what Will Redford does on this lap, and if he's able to angle his car into a good position for the exit coming down into the hairpin of the Melbourne hairpin.
Let's see if he can possibly try and teach Tom Griffiths a lesson. Right, you can do it into the S's. Now watch this, or maybe not quite so, as they swing through, all 6 or 7 of them in the leading group. Doble, Redford, Griffiths, Higgins, Blackwell, Chambers, Kendall and Joseph Doble. And here comes Redford and Griffiths. They're going to be 3 abreast almost in towards the Melbourne hairpin. But Redford has his nose just in front. Doble has track position and he squeezes Redford out. And Tom Griffiths says, remember me, I'm up for 2nd place if you don't mind. You just take it back, thank you very much. But Will is not interested in that. Back to the racing line he goes to defend from Griffiths. He's got the front just in time to stop Griffiths getting back up the inside again. Here comes Redford looking for the switchback exiting through Goddard's. Can't make that stick, but he's now right in the toe, tucked under the roll cage of Doble's car. Now he looks to the outside line. He'll either go round the outside at Redgate, which is quite an improbable move, but it can be done if you get the right braking point, or he'll try and get the undercut here, exiting Redgate all the way down the crane of curves. Griffiths is there on his right rear quarter if he's not careful. Now they come down the hill once again. We're just approaching half distance now in this second race. Still Doble that leads, but he's got a feisty pack of 6 cars all over him as they head down through the Craner curves once again. And let's see if Redford can try and get past him. Meanwhile, there's one of our other number 17 Higgins cars battling with Lee Britton, and also the number 28 Richard Harwood as they come through over the exit the front corner. Meanwhile, here comes a change from a lead potentially, so looks as though Redford has possibly found his line, but Doble again standing firm on the inside line, hoping that he can try and hold the position as much as he can, but of course he knows that he's backing both Redford and Griffiths into the back of Higgins, Blackwood, Chambers and Kendall and Joseph Doble as they head out through Coppers onto the back straight. Now past half distance with Doble once again, whilst he was trying to pull away the race number 1 with both Redford and Griffiths pushing each other to try and go after him. It's not such an easy time this time.
No, definitely not. But one thing Mikey Doble is doing excellently is defensive lines. He's getting into the corners that could possibly make a lunge for, and he's just sort of cutting it off for the rest of the field. Like we come down here, he normally switches over as he's going towards the inside here of the Melbourne Hairborn to go nice and tight here to then get the outside line here up to the run up to Goddard, so nobody can creep up his inside, which is obviously a super powerful position as we've seen previously with Will Redford being able to get past Griffiths. And he's just, Redford just having a look there at the moment. A little bit of a gap that Mikey did give him the opportunity to have a look, but Will Redford obviously backed out, and Mikey Doble at the moment is doing a masterclass in defence. Literally anyone that comes up behind him, he has the answers so far in this race. Currently 9 minutes into the 15-minute race here in the second one, but looking for that number 8 position, which would be pole at the moment, is being held by Britton. Harwood's managed to get past Higgins, who held that position for pretty much 9 minutes of this race. So now it's between Britton and Harwood who's going to take that P8 position.
Yeah, just a bit further back we're seeing here, we've got Steve Roberts from Dave Wood and Richard Jepp, who's recovered well from that spin at the beginning of the race. Then it's Keith Dalton, Gary Preble sat in 15th from Goddard and Hutchings, and Bob Bannister in there as well. Simon Hutchings way further back in there. Now we get back to our leaders, and he's certainly coming, isn't he, Will Redford? He's going to try and keep on attacking as much as he can. It might have been a bit of a warning shot to Mike, I think it's saying, I'm going to set you up for a move one lap here. That's a bit of a taste of what I might be able to achieve. And here he comes again with his first proper chance to pull alongside. Now, can he do what Griffiths couldn't do? Get the outside line to swing across into the S's. See here, that's Redford squeezing to the inside line, but Doble will hold fast as much as he can. Back to the racing line he goes. And no, Redford can't do what Griffiths couldn't do either. So now it's Doble's next chance to defend. He's down towards Melbourne Hairpin. So let's see if we can try again this time. Darting this way, and that Griffiths thinks, right, outside line for me. Down towards the hairpin, almost 3 abreast in there again, and once more Doble parks the car on the apex, then puts his foot straight on the throttle and just gets away with it. So he's going to try and keep these guys backed up as much as possible as we get to 4.5 minutes to go. And again, Redford this time thinks, right, outside lines the hairpin. Can this work? Can I get an undercut? The answer is maybe. But he's going to try and get himself back into the slipstream down the pit straight towards Redgate once again. This is the top 7 all together then. Mikey Doble, Redford, Griffiths, Higgins, Blackwell Chambers, Kendall and Doble all separated by 1.7 seconds. As again, Redford tries to attack into Redgate corner, looks for the undercut, but again, Doble's so good at putting that car off on the exit of the corner, right where Redford doesn't want him to be, right on the point where he would look for the undercut. Doble's got some great drive. They have to agree, this is a really good defensive effort here. We're not only taking the right line to the corner, but he's parking the car in exactly the right place it needs to be to stop any kind of undercut or switchback from the cars behind. It's a strong run so far, but I'm wondering with the pressure he's under here as they come up towards McLean's now once again. Side by side, and Redford just moves across a little bit, makes a little bit of contact. Is Doble going to come back up the inside to try and get through to hold on to the position? Yes, he does. Just about squeezes Redford out onto the edge of the curb. I wonder how long he can keep this up here, because Redford is putting him under massive pressure, but somehow Mikey Doble is able to put his car effectively in all the wrong places at all the right times.
Yeah, 100%. Mikey Doble's, a lot slower coming out of the corners, so Will Redford and Tom Griffiths cannot capitalise on it. I mean, this is a prime spot. You've got Redford just in front, but Doble's right in the position at the front, and will always get the run into this S's, and you find that lap after lap. Oh, there's a bit of a spinner there, number 76.
That's Griffiths.
Tom Griffiths has gone round.
That's Griffiths. That's Griffiths out for what was second or third place. And I wonder, that might have been for the fact that Redford had to really back out of going side by side. He couldn't commit to going side by side because there wasn't enough room to go through there with Doble. He backed up, and I wonder possibly that bit of concertina effect really affected Griffiths through no fault of either Redford or Griffiths' own, simply just getting caught up in the incident, and around he went. That's now him out of the podium places. So the 7-car race now become a 6-pack, I believe. We've got another 2.5 minutes to go here in this race. It's now Higgins up to third place from Blackwell, Chambers, Kendall and Doble. Then we've got Britton, Harbour and Griffiths. Now this could be interesting because it could be a silver lining here, because if Griffiths can get himself up into 8th position and stay there, it could then turn into a reverse grid pole for race number 3. So this could be, I'm not saying he spot on purpose obviously, but if he goes to 8th position, if Griffiths can stay there, that might well be a bit of a reprieve for Griffiths if he can get pole position whilst his rivals, these 2 or 3, provided they stay where they are, don't hit each other or take each other out, will have to start back in row number 4. So this will be pretty crucial as Redford gets right onto the rear bumper of Doble and almost turns him round. So I imagine it's either a point of just pace, but also a little bit of sheer frustration, thinking, come on, I'm much faster than you, Mikey. Stop getting in the way and just give me an opportunity to get through.
I think that's 100%. I think we're saying, no matter what I do here, you're putting it on them apex, like you said, coming into the corner slow, but on the exit, the apex, he's putting it right in front of Will Redford's car, so he's not able to maximise the speed. But here, maybe an opportunity. Will Redford has managed to get in front, and now he will have the inside line here, coming down to the S's. I think he's finally buckled under the pressure, has Doble, but Doble coming on the outside. Will Redford's just going to take that lead on the S's, and wow, I mean, it took a monster effort there from Will Redford to get past Mikey Doble, and you've got to hand it to Mikey Doble from the start of this race. He's just been under constant pressure, but unfortunately it looks like he might have buckled this. Will Redford at the moment in the lead to this race, and Mikey Doble in second place and Higgins in third.
It's not over yet. There's still a lap and a bit to go here as they come onto the start of the last lap in a moment's time. Doble then still staying close because he knows that Redford's pace is quite good. If you look at a replay here of how he did this, this is further back what happened to Tom Griffiths. So the top 2 then side by side. Now you can see here, Redford has to back out of it. He clips the curb on the inside, and again, I think he got a tag from somebody behind. It was a bit of a concertina effect. The closest car behind him, I think, was either Higgins or Blackwell Chambers. I think it might have been Higgins, possibly, but let's not speculate on that. Let's wait for the car to deal with that one post-race. So, last lap of the race then. Redford now has to go from Hunter to Hunted, because now it is Mikey Doble on the prowl to try and get his lead back through Hollywood, through the Craner curves then from the last time. Is there a chance here for Doble to try and get a reprieve and make it 2 from 2? It'll be his 4th win of the season. But of course, we're now waiting to see if Redford can make it 5 for the season. These two continue to trade back and forth at the top of the points on drop scores. Doble then trying to lodge himself underneath the bumper, looks to the outside. Here comes Mikey to the outside in towards McLean. He can make a move. Can he get a switch back here if he can try and pull it off? He's close. He tries to go, but Redford sees it. Straight to the inside line. Ultra defensive. Throws the block in towards Coppice corner. That can Doble do here what Redford did to him a lap ago down towards the S. He's not quite fast enough off the corner to go alongside, but he's tucked right under the roll cage of Redford's car as he gets up towards it. Again, ultra defensive, right to the inside line, and at the last minute Redford will go to the end outside to try and take his racing line, but he knows that Doble will have a slightly faster run off the corner, which might set him up for a possible movement to Melbourne or Goddard. Down towards the hairpin, again Redford straight to the inside line. He knows exactly what's coming, and look at John Higgins on the outside. He might take 2 for the price of 1 if they're not careful. Into the hairpin for Melbourne. Undercut the inside line. Redford went too deep, and Doble goes through, but they're battling, banging panels, banging mirrors up towards the exit, the final couple of corners. Doble sweeps across. Redford has nowhere to go. Look at Higgins on the outside line. There's a slow car in front. That's not going to work. Higgins goes round the outside. There's the other flags there. Round goes Doble. There's contact. It's absolute chaos. John Higgins goes through. Now then, that might have been the yellow flags if it was a slower car. I'm not quite sure or not. Across the line they go. Somehow, John Higgins wins that race from Will Blackwell Chambers. Will Redford in 3rd, Kendall 4th, and Doble's 5th and 6th. Then Britton and Harbour in 8th position. I have to ask the question, what on earth happened on those last couple of corners? It was Redford who lost the lead on the exit of Melbourne hairpin, and the lapped car, through no fault of his own, Gary Pebble was trying to keep out of the way, but they caught him at the worst possible moment, and then Doble just got caught up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it was absolute jackpot for John Higgins, past both of them, and he picks up the race win. Unbelievable.
2 for 1 here. Well, have a look on here. Gary Preble just going super slow, and like exactly the same. Mikey Doble managed to get past Will Redford after the mistake in the Melbourne hairpin. Coming up, Will Redford still had the opportunity, but Mikey Doble had that inside, the all-important inside line coming into Goddard, and unfortunately Gary Preble was right on the apex of there, and Mikey Doble just had no opportunity and had to go around the outside of him, and that obviously caused a little bit of a contact between himself and Will Redford coming around the last corner, and then that just gave John Higgins the opportunity to say, thank you very much, I'm going to have these two positions. You can just see him there, just cutting down the inside there as well, is Blackwell Chambers just saying, oh, thanks, I wasn't expecting second in this race, but I'll quite gladly take that. But what a bit of entertainment there for the last corner round Goddard's for the last time in race number 2.
I probably think that Gary Preble might feel a tiny bit guilty that he was the man that was in the middle of that.
So.
But then, to be fair, the rule is that the faster cars have to find their way around the slower car, and he was doing everything he could. The only thing I think he could have done was possibly go onto the grass if he really wanted to get out of the way, but he held his line, and the rule is the faster cars have to make their way around the slower car in their own way safely. So Preble just held his line, didn't swerve, didn't try and move across, and just really did get very unlucky getting caught up in the wrong place at the wrong time, which really didn't work out for him at all. Well, that result doesn't reflect what happened all race, because it's John Higgins who wins and Blackwell Chambers in second, then Redford third, Matt Kendall fourth, Mikey Doble fifth, and then Joseph Doble sixth, from Lee Britton and Richard Harwood, who will start this last race with the top 8 reverse. He starts on pole for this one. Tom Griffiths just missed out on that after he spun at the chicane. He will start 9th for this one. He has to try and pick his way through a la Redford in race number 2. And Higgins 10th, Roberts 11th, and Jep, Dalton, Goddard, Woodton, Hutchins, Bannister, and then Gary Preble somehow was the first car home that was lapped. So somehow he managed to make it through despite a damaged engine. Then it was Herbert, Etheridge, Jason Greytrex, Riley, Barrett, Rosenthal, Callum Greytrex, Harry England, and Joel Argonas round out the 27 cars. Well, quite crazy and bizarre end to the second race. We've still got one more to go. This should be quite intriguing to watch these guys pick their way through. It usually is with partially reverse grid races. Once they've managed to sort themselves out, I wonder possibly we're going to get more of the same with the added element, having to pick their way through arguably slower cars. But then you've got that gap of about 6 or 7 cars that are quite close together in terms of pace. So if they're all inverted, it might well be quite tricky to try and make their way through. Given that they are so evenly matched in terms of pace, there's not much in them in terms of race pace when you look at the lap times on live timing. So when you see that might not be such an easy task for the likes of Doble will start ahead of it for this time once again, which might be beneficial in terms of points, as it will have possible likes of maybe Blackwell Chambers, Higgins, and of course again Doble in there too, starting about 4th and 5th on the grid. So this could be quite an intriguing reverse grid race here, given that we've got a few cars that are moving up a couple of positions, but everyone's kind of staying around in that core 6 or 7 cars at the front of the pack, which should be quite interesting. And watching Griffiths come through from 9th will also be quite an element. He can be someone to keep an eye on from starting on row number 5.
Yeah, I'm just obviously taking that race 2 in. I mean, it was just such an enthralling race. You saw Redford and Doble and obviously Tom at the start of it, Tom Griffiths trying to get past Mikey Doble with the masterclass that he was doing defensively to hold it off. Will Redford managed to get through with a couple of laps to go, but then Mikey Doble had the opportunity there around the Melbourne hairpin, and it was literally just a race to the line, and unfortunately a back marker did maybe get in the way, but what it did do then was Mikey had nowhere to go. He had the inside line, the preferred inside line there going into Goddard's, but unfortunately had to move off that inside line to try and get the past of Gary Preble there with a very much a blown engine in that MX-5, and then that just caused chaos. And some of the people that were probably thinking, yeah, I'm going to come 4th or 5th here, you know, it's not really an opportunity when you're that far back to make the, and it just opened up for the drivers behind, and unfortunately Will Redford and Mikey Doble came off the worst there. Obviously Mikey a lot more than Will, but I mean, what a race to go. Mikey certainly has them defensive lines, but he's going to have to turn them defensive lines into attacking lines for this 3rd race if he wants to try and get this 2nd win for tonight.
Yeah, he needs to try and get a strong start off the line, which is exactly what Will Redford did in race number 2, there to try and pick his way towards the front after he had to start way back inside the top about 8th or 9th on the grid after his lap 1 spin. exiting the first couple of corners in race number 1. Whilst we're in warm-up, a couple of things to mention that BRSCC related. If you're heading to the Autosport show this week, started today, the BRSCC is there in attendance. They're at in Hall 2 on stand 2280. We've got the BRSCC on the book.com Jaguar safety car, the brand new rescue unit on the stand as well, and also one or two around, and it's sort of near and on the stand of the next generation Fiesta Junior race cars, the Mark 7s. What the likes of which Harry England, who's racing in the series tonight, has been racing all season in 2022. There was a great piece of news that came out today, which was that the Motorsport School, which is quite a well-respected motorsport sort of arts and a test and driver training centre, has taken the quite a brand new car from the club, from the BRSCC, to strengthen the partnership between the two parties, and that is their very own Mark 7 Fiesta Junior race car to use as their ARDS test and training, junior ARDS test and training car. So any driver that goes through a junior ARDS test will be driving the Fiesta Junior car. And some more information about junior experience and junior driver training will be available on the Motorsport School website. So that's a wonderful piece of news that came through today as well. We should also mention that there was a very interesting piece of news announcement came through, or a tease that came through from iRacing last night, which is very much BRSCC related in some sense that it contains a car which is very much something which BRSCC has quite a lot of association with. And that's a single-seater that popped up on iRacing's feed in social media last night, which sent quite a few people into a frenzy, because that very distinctly looks like, I'm pretty certain, a Formula Ford chassis. So we could probably be getting a Formula Ford, and there's nothing official what I'm saying this here, but potentially, if all things go well and there's demand for it, who knows, maybe in the future, if people want it and if there's a feasibility to do it, perhaps if it is a Formula Ford, maybe a Formula Ford esports series might be coming up in the future, but we will wait and see and come to that point when we need to. So here's the grid then for race number 3. Slightly topsy-turvy, I think. So that's actually the top 10 that gets reversed. So it's actually John Higgins who starts on pole with Tom Griffiths alongside him. Then Harwood and Britton on the second row of the grid. The Dobles with Joseph ahead of Mikey on row 3. Then Matt Kendall and Will Redford. Then Will Blackwood Chambers and John Higgins, who rounds out the top 10. And Steve Roberts and Richard Jett on row number 6. Row 7 sees Keith Dalton and Matt Goddard from Richard Woodson and Simon Hutchings. Then Rob Bannister and Gary Preble. Luke Herbert and Chris Etheridge. Then Jason Greatrex, James Riley, James Barrett, Kjell Rosenthal. The last 3 cars on the grid being Callum Greatrex, Harry England and Joe Arganes to make up the 27-car entry as we get set for race number 3 here on slightly more overcast conditions here at Donington Park, as we are now later into the day in the sim. I'm waiting for action to get underway. So John Higgins is number left in the blue car for Hills Motorsport. Tom Griffiths now gets a reprieve on the front row. Can he now get a victory? And what the likes of Doble, Blackwell Chambers, Wilfred and Co going to do here? Big dart already for Lee Britton there as he heads out from the third row of the grid. But we're underway for race number 3, the reverse grid race down towards Redgate for the first time under starters orders. And Higgins again goes to the inside of the middle of the road. Griffiths will try and get the other switch back if he can. The 2 Doble cars are moving forwards in 4th and 6th position. Redford is in 7th there, and about 8th of the lights you can see in there too is more Blackwell Chambers. Now, fingers crossed so far in the first couple of corners, he says tentatively, they've all got through just about carefully and without too much drama, if any. Now through the crater curves. Now the old hairpin's the pinch point. It's 1 or 2 instants here. There's Richard Jett going up the inside of Steve Roberts. Now, is there going to be a spin or 2 here? Now, it's been the first couple of races. Roberts is a little bit wide, but he holds on and keeps his foot in. And I think they've all just got away with it somehow. So far the first few corners, nice and clean and tidy. See if it stays that way. Griffiths goes to the front. He goes past Higgins into the lead. Up the hill now towards Coppice now for the first time. So it's Griffiths that leads, Higgins second. Then it's going to be Harwood third, Joseph Doble in 4th. That's the white and blue car, the Doble Motorsport livery with the red roll cage, the one with the yellow roll cage mirrors. That is Mikey Doble there in about 6th or 7th, 8th position or so. He's dropped back a few more spots. There he was. I thought we'd lost him, but he's tucked underneath the rear bumper of Will Redford again, so he's not surprised there. Lee Britton's having a strong start in P5 with Redford on his bumper. As they come through the chicane, a couple of cars skipping across, but they all seem to be getting through relatively drama-free. I won't say they've had a trouble-free first lap yet to cross the line. Let's see what they do when they get to the hairpin. Let's see if they can try and close in. This is now the other John Higgins in the field. He's now having a scrap with Jep and I think Keith Dalton there too. Steve Roberts is in there towards the back of the top 10. But Griffiths then, from the front row of the grid, reprieving himself after the spin on the previous race. So now Redford looks to try to go around the outside of the other Doble in the field, that being Joseph Doble, but across the line to end lap number 1, and it is Griffiths who leads from Higgins in second, Harwood third, then Britton fourth, and Joseph Doble, Redford, Mikey Doble, Kendall, Blackwell Chambers, and John Higgins to round out the top 10. Possible change up for second, but as the sun starts to peak out, it's a relatively trouble-free first lap or so, and then onto the pit of the Estes now for the second lap, and Griffiths now with a clear track trying to escape up the road.
Yeah, it definitely is. Got a 1 second lead over Harwood at the moment. He's fighting out with Higgins. See Higgins there on the inside, trying to go through the old hairpin, hopefully being able to maybe come back a bit at Harwood. Harwood getting the move done into the old hairpin, but these three now just letting Tom Griffiths run away at the moment. 1.4 seconds is his lead, and he's just sprinting away. These three battling it out, as well as we've got Britain in the mix as well. And look at further back there, you've got Redford just going upside the inside of Britain. Oh, as we got him out wide, and unfortunately collects Will Redford on the outside there, and Redford's car is absolutely destroyed. He will be going back to the pits. Oh, that's absolutely terrible there. Literally came out wide out of that corner and literally just spun across the track and took out two drivers there, and one of them being Gary Preble and Will Redford. So that's a terrible ending to race number 3 for Will Redford.
And that, I'm afraid, was all Richard Harwood. He lost it on the exit of the McLean's. Here's the replay. So this is what happened here. That's the red and white car at the top of the shot. Watch him here as he goes through. So he runs wide over the curb, onto the grass, loses the back end, just comes back across. He tags both Higgins and, more importantly, Will Redford. And once again, getting caught up in somebody else's incident, Will Redford for the second meeting in a row, because he did the same thing at Silverstone in race number 3. He's dropping valuable points because of somebody else's mishap. So that's a real misfortune, but unfortunately he scores nothing, and that will have to be another drop score. Whoops, Simon Hutchings gone around at the top of the screen as well, so he's gone through as we continue to watch the leaders. Now there is a breakaway group of 5 for second, because Tom Griffiths again, he's just disappeared up the road now by almost 3 seconds. There he is, almost in no man's land here as he goes through, and only just now at the top of the shot come our next 5 cars scrapping over second and third. So this is now Lee Britton in the red car heading through, number 50. Scrapping with Joseph Doble, who's having quite a fine drive actually. Mikey Doble, no, so Mikey Doble, he's Mikey in fact, sorry. Joseph's dropped back to 8, so he's actually Mikey Doble that's now in second place. And now here comes Blackwell Chambers trying to go around on the outside. Of course, Blackwell Chambers and Britton know each other very well, having battled more than once on the tracks in real life in Mazda MX-5. So now to come up towards McLean's, up the inside for third, looks Blackwell Chambers. That's why the Super Cup champion slots his way through and into P3 just about. He's trying to fight back here on the top copies. Higgins is in there too as well. Ooh, bit of touch on the doors, and that just puts Britain out wide. And Britain, I'll say touch wood, is having a better night tonight, because he's usually had a bit of bad luck in the last couple of meetings, as we see a couple more cars getting involved in the business. One, in fact, actually is the recovering Higgins that was involved in that incident. Ironically, the same place he went off on race number 1. And there is Richard Harwood, in fact. It looks as though that both Higgins and Harwood got away with that one, but as for Redford, he was the one that clouted the tyre wall, which tore off the right front wheel, and that's what's put him out of the race, which is quite unfortunate. We're looking here at a replay of what happened this is between Higgins and Harwood. It's the same incident from lap number 1, so he goes off the road, again, just loses the back end. And, okay, you could argue that, I'm not going to argue too much because I'm not a clerk in the course, but you could say that Harwood probably kind of should, yes, he's battling for position, but he could have backed off his throttle a little bit, because it looks to me as if he goes off the road onto the grass, then just keeps his foot in, and because of that, that's what loses him the traction. But that can be argued later on in the steward's office. Meanwhile, the leaders are coming up towards the end of lap number 3 or 4, and it's still Griffiths who leads now by about 3 seconds, with Doble trying to chase after him now. We're coming towards a third distance in this third race.
Yeah, all happening here now in this lap number 3, but Tom Griffiths has had the perfect start here. 3-second lead. We haven't seen this big a lead all evening, so I was wondering if he'd be able to manage to keep that lead for the rest of the 9 minutes we've got in this race number 3. Mikey Doble, who's had a great outing here tonight, obviously won the first race, was in contention for that second race, but that last mishap around Goddard's still put him up there, has an opportunity, but he's got to close down that 3 seconds over Tom Griffiths in front at the moment. Tom has been pretty strong all night, battling out with Mikey Doble for that first race, and then unfortunately coming a cropper in the second race there, but has certainly put the pedal to the metal here in the third race, and it's 3 seconds ahead. But currently watching a battle with Barrett, Higgins and Rosenthal there, and Rosenthal just going off wide, getting pushed off, and Barrett very kindly there gives the position back, realising that he probably pushed Rosenthal a little bit too much on that corner, so there's good sportsmanship out here tonight.
There is a little bit up and down the field. You can see Chris Etheridge here having a scrap with James Riley in car number 19, trying to squeeze the gap here. Richard Wootton, whoa, that was Not sure that was going to work, I think, Richard. Again, not to pass too much judgment. James Riley's the one that comes off worse than that one. It looked like it was Whitten trying to shoot the gap, but there wasn't really a move to get to make there. Matt Goddard is the one that benefits by picking up 2 positions quite freely. He's got past, he's still going, Richard Wilmington, but also James Riley off the road too as well. I want to keep an eye on what's going on up at the front whilst we look at this, because Mikey Doble has now got the gap down to by half a second. Here are the leaders. Gap is now down to 2.5 and what was 3 seconds, and about a lap and a bit. So Doble not hanging around here. He took about 4.5 tenths of a second out of Tom Griffiths on that lap, but now it's the scrap for third going on here between Higgins, Blackwell Chambers and Matt Kendall, who's been quite a quiet sort of night so far, but has got quite strong pace here in many cases, so looking pretty well. And also someone who's running pretty well in this race is Steve Roberts. Of course, he's someone who's formerly a Mazda MX-5 Super Cup racer, but someone who's a current MX-5 Super Cup racer, and showing it is Lee Roberts. He's trying to squeeze his way up the inside and almost bang door handles here with Steve Roberts up towards the top of McLean's and Coppice. Now they come through the right hand onto the back straight, and this now gives Joseph Doble a chance to get through in the second of the 2 Doble Motorsport cars. He looks to the outside down the back straight. Now Roberts will have the tow from Griffiths Britton in front. That was a bit cheeky there from Roberts. He took his line, there was no contact, but he's cut right across the front of Doble's car, and a rock over the chicane has really given him a chance to try and get past here. This is the scraps going on for outside the top 5 here, best of the rest outside P5 between these 3. Roberts, see what he did there. He tried to look for the undercut, but then Lee Britton parked it right on the apex. That's the Mikey Doble school of driving. Put your car in the wrong place at the right time to stop Roberts getting through. And now here comes Joseph Doble down the outside. Again, just a little kiss of wing mirrors as they come up towards the top end of the circuit of Goddard's end another lap. And Roberts might find himself the victim of an undercut, but parks the car neatly on the apex and gets through. So, again, Doble trying to pick his way back towards Griffiths. He's now got the gap down to 2.2 seconds with a new fastest lap of the race. But there's plenty of action going on in the second half of the top 10, as we can see, as these guys scrap over 6th.
Yeah, it's pretty much the top 3 at the moment, sort of getting away from the rest of the field. 3 is probably where the positions are being fought over between Higgins, Blackwell, Chambers and Kendall, like you mentioned. And then obviously that 3-row battle that we've just been watching between Britton, Roberts and Doble. Britton at the moment, I think he thinks he's in a bumper car because he seems to be quite happily to door rub with his competitors around it. But Tom Griffiths at the moment coming under a little bit of pressure, still has a decent advantage, 2.2 seconds, but that has come down 0.8 of a second in the last 3 laps. But sort of time is against Mikey Doble at the moment to get his second race win here tonight at Donington Park. But looking further back at Dalton, trying to make a move here on Jason Greatrex for P8th overall. But these little pocket battles are starting to form in this race 3, 2 or 3 cars maximum, whereas in the first 2 races we saw like a big train of cars, 6 cars in the first and second race at the front of the grid, and that's sort of been sort of neutralised with the incident that we watched earlier on, which took out Will Redford, as we see another car going extremely wide coming out. Oh, and he gets it completely wrong. I think that was a carbon copy of what we saw before, and that was Hugo Rosenthal getting it slightly wrong coming out of Coppice, hitting that dirty part of the circuit on the outside, and probably, like you said before, trying to keep on the pad to keep his position, but unfortunately it sort of bit when he came back onto the track.
Yeah, I think some drivers might need to learn that the throttle goes both ways. I think 1 or 2 didn't quite get that, particularly in the opening couple of laps when the tyres are quite cold. That was a few laps in, so I'm sure that they'll learn their lesson for that on the next time in a couple of weeks. Meanwhile, whilst the race continues on, the gap has come down to 1.5 seconds. In fact, the last lap, that was a full 0.6 of a second quicker for Mikey Doble. Another new fastest lap of the race, 1:44.46 compared to a 45.0 for Tom Griffiths. There's the gap that's gone steadily come down over the last few laps. You can see he took a full 0.6 out of him, but the last couple of laps before that, about 0.3 of a second or so per lap he's taken out of him. So Doble looks like he's doing everything right to try and catch up to Tom Griffiths, but of course, as we know, catching is one thing, passing is completely another. And of course, also one thing that might be against him is the time, because we're up to 11.5 minutes. It's a 15-minute race, so he has to keep on essentially taking out that much time per lap if he can, or to make that stick. This is a bit further back. This is Jason Greatrex, who is scrapping with 8th. Oh, and that's Roberts and another one of the Greatrex. That's Callum Greatrex has got involved. So whilst we've looked at one Greatrex, another one's getting involved with somebody who Callum, I think, was quite far back in 25th place anyway. So that was Steve Roberts getting involved with a back mark. I'm not quite sure what was going on there, but maybe that was another case of somebody just keeping their foot down a bit too much on the exit of McLean's corner. But Again, another one for the stewards to sort out later on. We're looking back here for Jason Greatrex, having a good run. He was last year's Masters champion in the Mark 1 MX-5 Championship, so he's certainly someone who knows all about racing MX-5, as do many drivers in this field. And behind him there's another one who's been a regular in the MX-5's been Keith Dalton. He's having a look up the inside in towards the Melbourne hairpin. And again, well, initially Greatrex had the line, but Dalton managed to squeeze his way through and open up the gap. And this is now Joseph Doble in 9th position, who's fallen back to try and pick up a couple of positions. Try and get past two of the MX-5 regulars in the real world, whilst Joseph, of course, is trying to use all of his experience from Combat Cup, and he actually passes two for the price of one, because Dalton went completely wide, and Jason Greatrex, I think, was anticipating a move from Dalton. He was way too comfortable into the final corner, and Doble said, cheers for that. He might well lose one position back here if Greatrex has anything to say about it. Under brakes towards Red Gate, which he does. Doble will look for that undercut, which he's going to get all day long on the exit to the Red Gate. Up through the gears again when he managed to make his way through. Yes, he does. Dalton says, right, you're going to leave the door open? I'll just follow him through. And that's 2 positions lost for Jason Greatrex. He's down from 7th to 9th in the blink of an eye. Likewise, Doble up 2 spots, 9th to 7th. Job done. Yeah,
Greatrex going really deep into that first corner, going out extremely wide, and sort of in these MX-5, you've really got to keep the power and the momentum going in it, and completely lost it there and lost 2 positions going in to the exit of the first corner. Looking back up now to Tom Griffiths, who Mikey Doble has done a cracking sterling job, considering he was 3 seconds behind. Tom Griffiths is right on the back now, but exactly like you said, catching him is one thing, making the passing move is going to be that other. Tom Griffiths knows, as we see here, Doble just going down the inside, using his defensive line to perfection again, and making a move on Tom Griffiths.
Yep, he's done it again, up the inside, and actually parking that car straight on the exit, the apex, to stop him trying to get past on the undercut. It's exactly what he did every single time, mostly to Will Redford when he was defending from him. And he's done that at the perfect moment as they come onto the last lap of the race. Look at the last lap before they entered this one. He was a full some 8/10, nearly 9/10 of a second quicker on that lap alone. He did a 1 foot, and on this lap here, he was a full 7/10 quicker again. So Griffiths tries to come back at him and towards Redgate, but again, Doble's got that line perfectly sorted out. The bump of the curve, though, won't help him out, though. This gives Griffiths the prime chance to go through the crane of curves right on Doble's tail as they come down the hill towards the old hairpin for the final time. The third behind them, if we focus on this, it's still Keynes, Kendall and Blackwell Chambers in that order, but we stay locked onto the battle for the leaders. Griffiths is now all over the back of Doble here, trying to get back past him. Funny when you get past the lead that you regain all your pace again, but Griffiths now is right underneath him here, all over the back of him, he's everywhere around him here towards the top of McLean's here, trying to get the switch back. If he can go around the outside unless Doble squeezes him out wide onto the curb, which he does, but he gives him enough room. It's just a little bit of a tap there, just letting him know he's still there. And can Griffiths do to him what Doble did to Griffiths a lap ago? He's going to try and get that slipstream down the back straight for the final time. Doble looking for his second win of the night. He was denied it in race number 2. And he try and put that right here in race number 3, unless Griffiths has anything to say about it. He might hand back just a small bar, just to try and get a good run through the chicane here up towards the 2 hairpins. Just take out the floppy markers whilst they go at it. Now, 2 corners to go. What can Griffiths do here? Doble again, as expected, goes right to the inside of the road, but he will park it right on the apex to stop Griffiths going around the outside. He's going to try around the outside anyway, and again just parks him, runs him all straight out of road, runs him out wide, thinking you're not going to get through, and close to the door at every single option he's got. 1 more corner to go. Can Griffiths try and make a last gasp move here? They have to go to the outside line, get an undercut for a sprint to the flag. Watch for Higgins in 3rd place behind them. Griffiths tries to get up the inside, a little tap on the rear, but it's not going to work as they make the sprint to the flag. He's not going to lose it, and Mikey Doble will take his second win of the night. It's going to be his 4th of the season so far. Doble wins it by 0.4 of a second. No, it's Higgins that got it.
Yeah,
Higgins got it on the final.
Yeah, he lost it. Griffiths came up, tried to obviously get that undercut or go too deep into Goddard's and lost a lot of speed, which gave Higgins the opportunity to nick the second place on the line from Griffiths. So obviously tried to go for the race win and lost second place in the throw of it.
That's going to be a pleasing result, meanwhile, for Luke Herbert, having a much better night tonight. 9th place for him, which I'm sure will be a bit more satisfactory than some of the luck he's had recently. Also for Lee Britton, good drive for him to pick up P6. He was best of the rest outside the top 5. This is Matt Goddard, well, it was Matt Goddard, with lag there on the screen, but Goddard and Richard Woodman's coming up towards the line to sort out the scrap for 16th, and it goes in Goddard's favour, just a couple of tenths. But the result there then puts Mikey Doble in victory from John Higgins, who steals it on the line in 2nd place from Tom Griffiths 3rd, Matt Kendall 4th, and Will Blackwell Chambers rounds out the top 5 from Lee Britton and Joseph Doble. This is a replay of what happened here between Griffiths and Doble. So now watch here around him here, because you're going to watch here for the blue car around them here. You got quite close under braking. So it's the blue, pink and black car just behind here in third place. So Griffiths got over the curb and got sideways on the exit. Higgins just got a better run off the final corner and beat him in a sprint to a line. It was Doble's victory. But despite darkness to the inside to get the shorter run, it was the momentum off the corner that helped Higgins get past. And again, in a result he might not have expected, he picks up another strong result in the podium places. So I think this is a night where some drivers who didn't expect to be on the podium got there. Others that should have been, or felt they should have been, weren't for various reasons. And so it really was a bit of a topsy-turvy night, but in the end it was victories for both Mikey Doble and unexpectedly John Higgins. I think the key person that didn't score any victories tonight and possibly be going up away from tonight and feeling a little bit sore, I think is Will Redford, because of course he would have been up there, but all he can muster is, I think it was a third or fourth place finish, but apart from that has to make do with the result inside just the bottom of the top 10, a third place and a DNF, and that I'm sure for the title is not what he wanted, and you might have to use a couple of these, not all these results mostly, as his drop scores at this point.
Yeah, definitely will be a bit disappointing there. But what it does do is it makes the championship nice and tight at the top. So it's going to make the rest of the rounds a lot interesting, because obviously going from the first round, it very much seemed that Will Redford was going to run away with the championship. But since then, he's sort of been pegged by the rest of the field. Like you said, getting a little bit more experience on the circuit. But obviously the race 3 result, Mikey Doble takes the win. John Higgins stealing second place, really. In fact, it's not the results, is it? Is that the result? I don't think that is. Just trying to think if that was. That is wrong. I thought it was wrong.
Well, the last time.
Did he?
Believe hearing about it that Griffiths be giving a post-race penalty. We think he got to slow down the last corner. Okay, that's the reason why then. So because of that, it looks like he's been slapped with, it looks like a 45-second penalty. So he's been dropped all the way down to 15th. So that now puts John Higgins in second place. Matt Kendall gets promoted to a podium. I'm sure you wouldn't have expected that one. More Blackwood Chambers and Lee Britton in P5. We'll be delighted with that one. Joseph Doble's 6th, Jason Graytrek 7th. Luke Herbert with a much better evening in the end in 8th position. If you're pleased with that. Then Richard Harwood, who was kind of the harbinger of doom when it came to Will Redford's race in race number 3. And then it was Keith Dalton in P10, Steve Roberts 11th from Harry England. That was a good drive also. A very quiet but unexpected, not unexpected, but quiet but understated drive from Harry England up to 12th, the Fiesta Junior racer, doing a fantastic job. John Higgins in 13th place from Chris Etheridge. Tom Griffiths, after his penalty, gets dropped to 15th. And Matt Goddard, Richard Woodman and James Barrett in 18th place. And the rest of the order from 19th downwards sees Simon Hutchings, Will Redford, who is, I think, with a fast repair, got back out there and still finishes 20th, but it'll have to be a drop score for him, I'm certain. Then Hewell Rosenthal, Bob Bannister, Gary Preble, James Riley, Callum Grayfix, Richard Jepp, and Joel Argeles, who's had a bit of a tumultuous night as it goes. I'm sure we'll be pulling in one or two of our interviewees as they come. There's 2 waiting in the interview waiting area, so I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 more that will jump in to see what Will Blackwood Chambers has. But I think what we'll do is we will probably pull in the man who's taken 2 victories tonight and puts himself down shore. I'd like to think firmly at the top of the points potentially, and that is Mikey Doble. Mikey, congratulations, 2 victories tonight. Maybe not the results you were expecting in race number 2, but races 1 and 3, you really had to show one thing, and that was an unbelievable defensive effort where you're putting your car, I think as we put it in the broadcast, in all the wrong places but at all the right times. And it was an unbelievable defensive effort. Just how did you manage to cope with absorb all that pressure? That must have been must have had quite a sweat on trying to keep the likes of Tom Griffiths and especially Will Redford at bay after all that defence for so long.
Yeah, well, for those that follow my racing, they'll know that I had exactly the same race to win the Ginetta GT5 Championship back in October at Donington. So I've had plenty of practice doing the aggressive defending round there. I know everywhere the right places to put the car to defend your position. But yeah, the toe is so strong in these cars around here that you have to really get aggressive if you want to keep people behind you. Otherwise, you can lose 2 or 3 positions at a time.
Yeah, this was a night where I think because of all the work that you did, and of course you're drawing all that real world experience, I think this is possibly a night where if you look back at it, it might well be a pivotal one in the championship race, because of course tonight you scored some very strong results, 2 wins in the 6th place compared to Will, of course, having quite a tumultuous one, having got a 3rd place in race number 2, but of course he finished about 9th or 10th in race 1, had the issue on the first lap where he had the incident that put him down, and he had a fast repair and got back out to finish 20th. So this, in terms of points, is going to be a big result for you, of course, and that means that going to the second half of the race, it might well be that you've now got a points lead to defend rather than chase after. So is that going to bring any added pressure, or is the fact that you've been here before in the situation in real world with the likes of, Compact Cup and Ginettas, is it a familiar feeling having someone now chasing you for the title rather than you doing the chasing?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I'm sure I'll be able to hopefully just take each race as it comes. I think it kind of puts me and Will on level pegging now, because I've been on the back foot since Alton Park when I had a technical difficulty for race 2 and missed the grid, and that kind of spoiled my night there. So I had a couple of races that went straight in the bin, which were going to be drop scores, and then it was kind of on the back foot trying to be really aggressive from here. And I think now 3 rounds in, everyone's kind of had their fair share of bad luck and DNFs and incidents that I think going on in, it's just going to be about, I've still got to keep beating my main championship rivals. I can't sit back and rest on my laurels as such. I've got to keep pushing and keep going for the wins.
Yeah, of course, particularly when you've got such a talented field around you. Do you feel as though now, there's been, of course, a bit of a break now for a couple of weeks for Christmas and New Year that's gone through, but regardless of any spins and incidents that people have behind, do you feel now, particularly with the group of cars that you had at the front of the field, there was 6 or 7 cars battling for the lead at any one time, usually throughout most of the races? Do you think that drivers are starting to get more and more attuned with these cars now, and the racing is starting to get closer and more competitive as more and more drivers get themselves towards the front end and start to get themselves regularly more in the top 5 or the top 10? Do you think that more drivers are starting to kind of find the groove that they need to come and join the likes of yourself and Will and Will Blackwell Chambers and other guys towards the front? It's becoming more competitive towards the front.
Yeah, it is, definitely. There's a lot of people in the championship which have probably only joined iRacing to join this series, so you can just see that the level of general ability across the field is getting better. There's definitely more cars in the lead pack now than there was at Alton at the beginning of the year. But yeah, I think the racing's only going to get tougher. It helps that we're obviously racing around British circuits, so people not having to learn the tracks quite as much as if we were doing some international circuits. But I like that element of it. I hope Knockhill stays next week. I know they've been talking about maybe replacing it with a slightly easier circuit. I do hope that's not the case, because it's great fun in these cars. But with the draft in these cars, it kind of gives people their shot to have a race for the win, and kind of race people that you might be a couple of attempts slower than. But the draft is worth half a second round here, so it keeps the pack together, and that's what makes the racing entertaining.
Well, I think entertaining is certainly the word to use, because it definitely was all the way tonight. And any questions for double race winner Mikey Doble at all?
No, I think he pretty much said it. At the start, his real life experience on this track put him in good stead. I mean, it was a cracking defensive display to hold off the 2 rivals that were right behind you, and a cracking race win. But what was good in that 3rd race was to see the other side of you, where you were 3 seconds to close down on Tom, and you were able to do that. So congratulations tonight on what was a very good round for yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just on that race 3, I think I'd give myself a pat on the back to say that's probably one of the best drives I've done in a sort of competitive league like this, to hunt Tom down sort of on pace to catch him and pass him for the lead. Yeah, I was really happy with that. So thanks for the feedback.
Great stuff. Well, congratulations, and if Knockhill does stay, we'll see you there. But if there is a change in circuit, I'm sure that we'll communicate that, and whatever happens, we'll see you for the next one. But well done, solid racing, and get yourself sorted for the next one.
Yeah, thanks for the broadcast again, guys.
Excellent, good stuff. Thank you, Mikey. So there's Mikey Dover, the double race winner. I think we will bring in the man who's currently his championship rival, but didn't have the greatest of evenings tonight, which I think is an understatement. Will Redford. Well, I wish I could say something better other than I think it's best you forget about tonight, because yes, there was a 3rd place, but that could have been a victory that was almost there. But I think it's one of those evenings tonight where now this race is over, it's probably better it was over than it's going on for longer than it did, because it was not a really an evening that worked in your favour tonight, was it?
No, it wasn't particularly ideal, but it was still a lot of fun. I did enjoy myself, especially in race 2, racing against Mikey. Obviously it's hard work, and I know what Mikey's like. If I try to go around his outside, he's going to send me on the grass. So, I had to set it up at the right point and go up his inside, which I managed to do. And then we had a great race, pretty much the entire race. Race 1 at Redgate, I lost it by myself. I don't know what it is about Redgate, but I hate that corner, and it hates me as well. I've lost it in real life there a few times. So I don't know what it is about that corner, but I always end up in the gravel there. that set me back quite a lot. But I managed to bring it back for race 2. Race 2, obviously, that was a brilliant race. I maybe should have won, but you know, with all of us going into the final few corners like that, and then a lapped car being there as well, you never know what's going to happen. And at the end of the day, I still beat Mikey, so I'm happy about that. Sorry, go on.
Just quick, I was going to say that final couple of corners, if you can even remember it, what was going through your mind in those last couple of corners? Because of course Mikey managed to squeeze his way back past, and then the whole situation with the back marker simply just staying on his racing line and just allowing you guys to get around him and everything that happened in between. If you can remember it, what was going on in your mind that thinking there's a lapped car around here and it all just descended into a few seconds of almost complete chaos around you?
Yeah, so I knew I had to defend into the first hairpin, which I did very aggressively, maybe a bit too much, which meant I went deep on the brakes and allowed Mikey to get back up my inside. And at this point, it's when I noticed, when I was getting pushed onto the grass by Mikey, is that there's a car ahead of us going slowly without an engine. And we were going to catch him very quickly into the last corner, which we ended up doing. And, you know, he did get out of the way, but at the same time, maybe he shouldn't have been there because it sort of all put us off quite a lot. So, you know, I mean, he tried his best, but it's a bit annoying when you're going into the last few corners of a race. There's 4 of you racing for the lead, and there's a car there on the inside that doesn't have an engine. It's a bit weird as well. But, you know, what was going through my head was more just, I don't really know, I was just reacting to the situation. And it all got a bit messy, but, you know, we all came out of it straight at the end, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, and then you're about to say race 3, which pretty much was the race. That kind of race kind of came to a conclusion in many cases before it even really got underway. Kind of about 2/3 of a lap around, and all of a sudden you're in the barriers through no fault of your own. Yeah,
I mean, I had a brilliant start. I was up there straight away, and then coming into, I can't remember the name of the corner, but you know what I mean. That right-hander. There was a car on the grass which I didn't actually notice until I got sent into the wall and I checked the replay back. So, you know, it was a bit of a surprise to me, and Mikey noticed it, which was good for him because he managed to avoid it. But, you know, there's not much I can do. I mean, they're both on the left, and then they suddenly come across and I get sent into a wall. It's unlucky. It was his fault, but he's not really done anything wrong. At the same time, I did the exact same thing in race 1 at turn 1, so I can't really blame him for it. It's just one of those things that happens, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, not to use a cliched phrase, but I think that really much that's racing, as they say in that case. So now, of course, we've left Donington. Of course, the second half of the season now on. I think it looks like it's pretty much going to be you and Mikey for the title here. And I think if we're going to get racing as intense as that, I think we're pretty much in for quite a show from the last 3 races, aren't we?
Yeah, it should be good. I mean, I think I should still be in the lead on drop scores, but I'm going to have to not have any more poor rounds because I know Mikey has impeccable luck from the other championships I've raced him in, and he never seems to go wrong. So it's going to be hard, but it's going to be good fun. And I wouldn't rule out John Higgins Jr. either because he's always up there with us, and he's been very consistent at the moment. So I could see him up there fighting with us for the championship. Maybe not on track, but definitely on points. So we'll see what happens, but it should be good fun.
Well, the great thing is, despite not so satisfactory night results-wise, you can still go away with a laugh and a smile on your face, which is the best thing about it. So, Andy, any thoughts for Will here after a tumultuous night, shall we say?
Yeah, I suppose it's one to forget, but it's great attitude from yourself, Will, to see the positives and just take away the positives. You know, a lot of the incidents you mentioned about Redgate in the first corner, very much a no mistake. So you obviously knew that one. Second one, yeah, it was a cracking race all the way up until the last corner, but like you were saying, that unfortunate back marker with a smoking engine sort of got in the way of that. Third one, obviously not in. Not by your doing an innocent bystander there, but it's always good to see you and get you in, and you've always got a positive attitude. And I think, at the end of the day, that is racing. Things can happen. You just got to look forward to the next round and not let it affect you. But I'm pretty sure we're going to see you come out strong in the next race, mate.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Well, commiserations what it was for tonight, but best of luck for next time, and I'm certain the battle between you and Michael will rumble on to the next rounds at not kill if that's where we're going. But anyway, keep your chin up, and I'm sure you'll be back for the next one. But either way, well done.
Thanks, mate.
Great stuff. So that's Will. Let's have a chat to one of our unexpected podium finishes after he had quite a silent but solid evening tonight, and that's Matt Kendall, who definitely surprised one or two people. Matt, great to talk to you. I think tonight was a night where you kept yourself quiet pretty much for most of the race, but you picked up quite a few good results, and I think the phrase is kept your head whilst everyone else lost theirs, I think, and that's pretty much a quite accurate way of summing it up, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially after the last 2 races where I've got myself involved in silly incidents that have cost me. It was really about just keeping my nose clean.
And that you did, and of course you managed to pick up a podium out of that as well. It was not in terms of your pace being a surprise, but was it a surprise that you were able to kind of pick your way through, and that some of the drivers which are more the established front runners already in this first couple of meetings, that they were making more mistakes at this point in time, and that you were able just to pick your way through and keep your nose clean at this point?
Yeah, it certainly wasn't something I was expecting. I'm sorry for their misfortune, but I'll definitely take the fruits of that.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of things lined up. So, yeah.
Great stuff, and it looks like you've made some really good progress in terms of your pace and developing yourself throughout the first half of the season so far. Now into the second half, what are the main things that you've learned from this first 2 or 3 evenings of racing that you're now going to take forward to keep on building your pace and keep yourself amongst those front runners in the next 3 metres? Is there any key things that you've taken which you're now going to keep on applying from Knockhill onwards?
Basically, just pick your battles. You know, there are going to be drivers that are going to be quick enough to walk away from you, but at the end of the day, if you stay out the way and just sort of tag along, then and you're sensible, then it will probably go your way. So just don't try and win it on that one for me, really.
I think that's simple but sage advice by the sounds of it, which is I think it's definitely something to live by on the racetrack. And any thoughts for Matt after his silent but certainly quite fruitful night?
Yeah, just obviously we're 9 races into this championship, 3 rounds down. How is your expectations? I'm not sure if you were an iRacer before this championship, but obviously when you came into this championship, what were your thoughts driving this car around on the iRacing platform? And also now, what are your thoughts 9 races in, and what have you really taken away from doing the league races on iRacing?
Well, although it's been a bit frustrating initially, and I've had a couple of rough rounds, which I can probably account to my own hot-headedness due to lack of experience in general. It's been really positive. I mean, tonight was, from where I was sitting, was a great scrap, and I think going forward it's just going to be focusing on consistency and putting the time in. Just you get out what you put in, and just sort of going out to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's learning the tracks. Obviously, if you've raced around these in real life, it's probably amazing. I don't know if you found the real similarities of this iRacing platform and the real life racing around, say, Donington, Silverstone, that we've been around so far. Have you noticed that the car reacts in the same way as it would on a real track?
Yeah, I can definitely see that, especially under braking. I feel like I have a pretty nice feel for the car under braking, and I can really push it into the corner like I can for real. So it's quite comforting in a way to be able to rely on that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, good luck for the rest of the season, and you can only grow from strength. And I think you've got the right mentality. These races are all about being consistent and picking up them standard points. And come the end of the season, you'll be there or thereabouts in the top half of the grid if you keep it going. So congratulations on your first podium, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Right, Matt, we'll see you next time. Right, one more driver to bring in. Well done to Matt, of course, for his results and picking up a podium along the way. Let's bring in the man who's quite a consistent night tonight and kept himself relatively out of trouble, and again, not had too much drama, and that's the man himself, Will Blackwell Chambers. I think it's safe to say, Will, that was a much better night in terms of fortunes, and even a podium to few troubles as well. So I think you'll take that, won't you?
Evening. No, I'm very happy. I've had some interesting luck in this series so far, so this evening was a dream. I was quite happy with my pace. I mean, I'm not as quick as the front guys, I think we could see that, but able to stay with them, and sort of when it got spicy on the last lap, normally managed to get myself in the right position to pick up some scraps, which, yeah, really happy with that evening. Really good.
And you had a grandstand seat for what was going on at the end of that second race with the back marker and the leaders in the mixers, and that allowed you to sneak up the inside and steal a podium away. What could you see happening from your point of view? Because that must have been almost pandemonium in front of you, right about 5 or 6 inches in front of where you were.
Couldn't see a lot because there was a car in front of me, but I saw a lot of smoke. So that was interesting. had a chat with said driver. He's not going to do that again, and we're all good going forward. But no, it certainly spiced up the final corner, and I got away with it, so I'm very happy.
Yeah, I did see afterwards that I'd have felt that he might have felt a little bit guilty after being there. But then again, I did obviously mention that being the slower car, it was up to the faster cars to find their way around them. But I think it was a bit of bad misfortune to be in that position when everyone else was bearing down on him heading in towards the last corner. But even so, a podium as well, some strong top 5 finishes that gives you some really nice solid points to end off the first half of the season. Now for the second half. The competition seems to be getting a little bit closer. There's more cars in the leading group. There's a few more cars getting onto that leading pace. So competition just keeps on building now with 3 more races still to go.
Yeah, drivers are practicing, drivers are putting time in. Everyone's sort of starting to, I think, feel it out a little bit more. And I think, yeah, everyone's just getting into the groove for it now, which has been really, really nice to see. I still think we've got a strong grid. What was it? I think 30 cars on this evening, which is always good to see. Especially, you know, after the Christmas break and everything. And yeah, we're up at Knock Hill next time, which will be action-packed as ever. Very tight, twisty circuit, and one that many drivers haven't had the chance to go to in quite a while. And definitely a gem of the English racing circuit, or Scottish racing circuit for sure. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing what that one brings.
I think we all are in that mix. And how are you rating your chance at Knock Hill? I'm not sure if it's a circuit you've frequented much in, even at all in real life, but in the sim, are you confident with chances there possibly?
Well, we did a practice race on there to do some media coverage, and I was racing around with John Higgins, so I'm fairly comfortable that, you know, hopefully I should be able to stay with them. So that should be good. And yeah, but for real life, I haven't driven it since my first year in Mazdas back in 2012 or 2011, so it's been a while.
I'm sure you can re-jog your memory pretty quickly, as I know you can. So, but either way, fantastic stuff. All night to get the points that you have. Andy, just quickly, any thoughts for Will?
Yeah, it's obviously the first 2 races out there. You couldn't really buy any luck, I don't think, in them first 2 races. But certainly something's changed here in the second half, and probably I bet you're wishing it keeps on going for the remaining round in the season. Certainly that second race picking up them 2 extra gained positions at the end, other people's misfortunes. But seems like the luck has sort of changed for you. Do you feel that, and do you feel more positive now going into the rest of the rounds?
I'm definitely more positive. I mean, it feels like that was the race that I could finally show the pace that I've had all season. Because I'm openly admit I'm not as quick as those front boys. You know, Will and Mikey, they're in a different league. But you know, when you've got the slipstream, it's quite powerful, and the Mazda, it allows me to stay with them. So it's nice to kind of finally be there, and just, you know, as you say, the luck seems to have turned. Just had a clean run, which I'm very thankful for.
Yeah, so a great round for you tonight, and look forward to seeing you out and hopefully Knock Hill next time out.
Yeah, for sure. Cheers.
Great stuff. Thank you, Will. And that pretty much concludes tonight's action from the BRSCC Winter Esports Series. Good to get the cobwebs dusted off from the festive period and back racing once again. I think, again, as I mentioned before we went to the interviews, it was a night where some of the drivers would have expected to be up in the front getting victories and podiums, didn't quite, due to misfortunes not quite going their way. 1 or 2 drivers who might not have expected it did pick them up, and so got some good points. Now the second half of the season, we get to that stage now in any championship where first half of the season, you feel each other out a little bit, you see who the front runners are, you then go forwards into the next first couple of rounds, and you see who the main contenders are, and you see who could be up there as a threat. Now you get into the second half of the season. This is where drivers have to re-pick their battles carefully, and particularly make sure that every single result, and therefore every single point they score, really counts and makes a difference going forwards into the next few rounds. So this is going to be now going from Knock Hill onwards, where every single driver, I'm certain, is going to have to pick their battles and pick their moves and pick their lines and just how they drive each simple race. Think it out very, very carefully and not make any moves that could potentially drop them points and potentially drop them out of contention for any positions they could be fighting for the championship, including, of course, the battle for the top spot.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of the drivers have made their mistakes in the earlier rounds, so they've already got their drop rounds in the bag, and they can't afford, like Will said, he can't afford to have another bad round. But what is also evident is more of the back markers now are getting used to the platform, getting used to the cars, getting used to their own driving setups they've got at home on their rigs, and they're coming a lot more into the frame. Like you were saying, a lot of people now, like, that weren't there in the first 2 races, are there now in this race, so they're really starting to close builds the field up and the gap up to the front. So you haven't got the Mikey Dobles and the Will Redfords just basically running out on their own at front. We saw there in the second race there were 6 cars in the row for that race win. So the field is certainly compacting up, and it's going to be a really good run into the end of the season now, with everyone gaining that vital experience on iRacing. So it's going to be a fantastic last couple of rounds here in this BRSCC Winter Esports Series.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It should be fantastic action all the way through for the next 3 meetings. So the next one is where we head virtually across the border to Bonnie, Scotland, and to the hills of Fife, where we get to the Knock Hill circuit. Of course, fantastic little facility, only about 1.2, 1.3 miles in length, but it is hilly, it is tricky, and it is also a circuit where it is deceptively quite hard and quite dangerous for some drivers if you take too many liberties with it. So it should be quite a exciting affair all round. Until then, if you want to keep tabs with all the first 2 meetings that we've had, you can either head to the BRSCC YouTube channel or visit Apex Racing TV's YouTube channel as well and scroll your way through. It's also available if you look through some of the live streams that we've had through on the BRSCC Facebook page as well. If you want to find out more about the esports series and any other championships that we run at the club, you can head to the website brscc.co.uk. If you're also heading to the Autosport show either tomorrow, Saturday or Sunday, you can visit the BRSCC in Hall 2 on stand 2280. Be sure to go down and meet the team and check out one of the brand new Mark 7 spec Fiesta Junior race cars. There's also a few more BRSCC related race cars like the new Audi TT Cup racing cars around in a couple of stands. You've also got the Fun Cup stand as well. There's also 1 or 2 of the C1 cars. There's the TCR UK stand as well with a few TCR cars there as well. Plenty of their drivers and machines are out there all 4 days too. Lots of all sorts of things, and also the new Formula Foundation electric single seater as well, which is on the EV feature, which is out on the floor as well. So lots of BRSCC related stuff to go and see and visit if you're heading to the NEC in Birmingham as well. The next round, of course, is in a couple of weeks when we head to Knock Hill. But until then, thank you very much for watching. If you're watching it back post-record or live, for myself, Scott Woodward, and Maddie Thompson, thank you to Sam Fitzpatrick on our cameras and production tonight as well, and everyone at Apex Racing TV and all the people that are supporting in the series as well. And until next time, enjoy yourselves. If you're going to Autosport, enjoy the show, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks for more action from meeting number 4 of the 2022-23 BRSCC Winter Esports Series. Bye for now.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why.